Let's talk about the IG lineup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the 2018-2019 IG lineup. I think that this was a pretty interesting lineup, and I think the main thing that like differentiated them from other teams was just how good the solo laners really were. I don't think we've ever seen like solo laners look this good before for like this amount of time. I mean, everyone knew that like Ning and Balan were kind of like cheesy players. I mean, 2018 was the meta, if you guys remember, where Crab was like spawning at 2 minutes and it would give you like half a level of experience. So every jungler in the game was like a level 2 jungler. You would do red Krugs and then you'd walk the Crab and you'd fight to the death over Crab. So the whole game was predicated on how strong your jungler could be level 2 because you needed to get the Crab or you instantly lost the game. If you like double Crabbed, the fucking world would explode. Like the Nexus would just instantly explode. So this was the meta. And like up until I guess Zika's performance, I think the Shy was like the clear best performer ever in a world championship. Like when it comes to individual performance, besides for maybe like Faker in 2013, I would say, just because of how dominant the Shy was. And it wasn't just that he was dominant on like a certain amount of picks. It felt like this guy could literally play everything. Like you saw his Akali, it's like, oh my god, it's the best Akali in the world. You saw his Kayle, oh, it's the best Kayle in the world. His Aatrox is the best Aatrox in the world. Oh, Fiora, he's picking when the coach is telling him not to. He's the best Fiora in the world. Like every champion that was in the game that was relevant top lane at that point, it just felt like he was just better at that champion than everyone else. And yeah, I mean, this team was super dominant. They ended up obviously winning spring and then going to MSI. They had that terrible fluke loss to like TL that was held against them. And then in 2019, like if we're taking away the 2018 Worlds win and stuff, we're just talking about the history of the team. 2019, they had the semifinals where it looked like they were just going to win game 4 and they threw game 4 super hard. They ended up losing to FPX, who ended up completely destroying G2. And I think that IG probably would have done the same thing. In that final, it just looked like those teams were just on a different level. So I think this team is pretty underrated in these conversations because of the fact that they lasted 2 years and they had like a good 2 years.
When did the Shy actually debut? Because he didn't play in the spring playoffs, right? It was Duke who was playing at the time.
What happened was, as far as I remember, it was something like, I think in the first one, he might have either had like an injury or there was some reason they didn't use him in spring. And then I know they sometimes used to bring... Yeah, he definitely was, but it wasn't that. Okay. It was something like he had an injury or something. And then also, they used to also use Duke as like the carry versus the tank top laner. So sometimes like a couple of games in Worlds, they played Duke. Obviously one time to punish the Shy for that stupid pick, but they played one of the Fnatic games with Duke as well. So like, it was also stylistically what they wanted to do. Like if you want to go pure carrier, you wanted to go supportive style. Actually, on the thing that Dom's saying there as well, I think that's actually a mega underrated part of this tournament as well, is that like, even though I agree, if you look at the MSI and the Worlds afterwards, this is a world where this team could have won 3 international tournaments. They were good enough. Like, they actually were a really strong team. But the interesting thing for me is this was also, again, the meta just hitting you smack in the face for the players that you have. Because not only, like Dom said, was the jungle essentially set up so that their jungler, who, by the way, got, like, tournament MVP, his job was just have the 2 best solo laners and then push up and go take the crap every time. Like, I don't even know why. Yeah, I don't even know why he was being considered some, like, genius fucking giga. To me, it was just raw strength of the soul and has set that whole thing up. And in fact, this is why the meta was crazy. Because remember, that was the season where top lane didn't just become opened up as a carry role. It had insane flex to mid. So think of these champions that if you're an LPL team, you can flex these top. You can go Irelia, Aatrox, Jace, Ryze, Akali. These are the strongest champions in the game, and top and mid can both carry from them. And the Shy and Rookie are both mega hard carry players, so they would flex it. Like, that's why there's that joke on my episodes I did with Perks and Wonder, where when I asked them about getting wrecked as G2 by IG, they just sort of take turns to say, like, no, it was whoever had the Jace. So if, like, the Shy had it, Wonder got wrecked, and then Wonder's like, yeah, but what about when Rookie had the Jace? You got wrecked a bit. It's like, when these guys just had those champions. Think about this. You have 2 of the hardest carry players ever with flex potential. And on top of that, by the way, this is when Jackie Love used to play like no one sent him the memo that it was a solo lane team. He would just play fucking pushed up all game. He had no support, and he played push up 24/7. 7. And then lastly, this is why this one tournament was the one where this team could be the best. Everyone knows Baolan was one of those like serial, like fucking, wasn't he like the ultimate like Rakan abuser or whatever the fuck? He had like one champion he could play. But again, because he's on a team with all these gods of the other roles, he's going to get his champion every now and then. It's like Missing and fucking Delight this year could pick Rakan anytime they wanted because you're worried about the rest of the team, not their support pick. So I also think the meta for this team at that Worlds was fucking a peach. And that's what they were just mega dominant as a result. Like, I don't think anyone could have beaten that team. I don't think anyone could. People forget even the 3-2 against KT, but they were one like fucking Nexus hit from that being a 3-0 as well. That could have been the most dominant Worlds too.
And they literally were disciplining one of their players during the series. It's like they literally didn't let their best player play because they were disciplining him during this. Like it was not that close.
And like the other coach is like, well, we've got to win the game. Hey, listen, he's going to have to learn this lesson sooner or later. So I'm going to waste a game just to give him a break.
Yeah.
I love it.
I also think that nowadays.
I also think that Dom's point about, because they ran back this roster, and this is one of those teams where like their most dominant period was kind of split across 2 years because they didn't win any LPL titles in 2018, but they did win Spring 2019, which, punched them that ticket to MSI, which they also then crashed out, as Dom referred to, against Team Liquid in the semis. But this is a team that it's a weird period because they both peaked at Worlds and then in LPL Spring the next year. So they did eventually get their domestic title. And I think they were one game away from winning a title in summer, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were close to the title in summer. Well, the thing that happened in summer was like they had like Leyen playing instead of Ning. So like it was like Ning was just kind of running it. So they didn't even like know if they were going to run that lineup. And then the team just, even though Lan looked like an individual better player, they just decided that Ning was like somebody who everyone felt more comfortable playing with. So they brought him back at Worlds, and then they started looking really good at Worlds, and they were in contention for winning the entire tournament.
And they did nothing in summer, but like they already had the spring split, so they went through the regional.
Yeah, and then but by the next summer, that's when they had basically completely crashed out. I mean, they lost
in 2018. They almost won summer, right? Okay.
In 2018, they lost. They were down, one game to RNG.
Because at the moment it's getting too confusing. Let's say the name of the number of the split or whatever. Yes, you mean 2018? They almost won, and then 2019 they won spring, but they didn't do anything summer. Yes.
Yeah. They crashed out big time in summer of 2019. So although compared to Samsung White, while this wasn't a team where I think was as meta innovative, like they didn't have the same effect on the kind of overall way the game was played, they did have a longer peak time because they stayed together after Worlds we'll never know from Samsung White because they didn't stick around, right?
The joke is, no one actually thinks about this ever, but the Samsung White one's the ultimate blue balls of all time. You don't ever even get to see what they would do in the next tournament. Like, for all we know, there'd be shit, it'd be no problem, but you'll always be haunted by the what if now, won't you? Bloody China.
Yeah, all the players went to China from Samsung White. They all split up onto different teams, obviously, because they had
to. If anyone from China is offended by what I just said, I will now be bringing in Arnold from Gen G to apologize on my behalf.
You respect the sovereignty of Samsung White.
Here's the thing. I just disrespect everyone equally. So as a result, I'm not bigoted. So no problem. No issue.
So yeah, I think though this is the hard one because the individual player peaks were what was so crazy about the solo lane peaks that Dom referenced was what was so crazy about IG, and the fact that even though Mata and Dandy looked incredibly dominant with Samsung White, it wasn't the same level of kind of like awe-inspiring smashing that the Shy and Rookie were delivering with this iteration of IG. And this team also felt like they were just not going to lose. It was just for different reasons. It was less of a suffocating, vision control map presence than it was just you cannot win mid and top. Like that's impossible. I also just low-key forget every time that Duke is technically a 2-time world champion.
Yeah. No,
it's like one of the weirder
credit. He gets no credit for that 2018 one. I give him 0 points for that.
I know, it's just funny. It's just funny because you forget because he's like, I mean, he's good, but he's one of the more forgettable players, and I think a lot of people wouldn't even realize that.
How many top players are winning on that?
World.
I mean, how many top laners are going to win on 2016 SKT? I mean, you think about like the meta, like he's playing like Trundle top and like fucking Poppy and Echo top with tank items. Like this was the full tank top lane meta. Like I never thought this guy was like the best top laner in the world or something.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.